All right, hey everybody, welcome back to Movie Howl. This time we're going to be discussing Ford v Ferrari. It's a racing movie, so we've got to do this fast. I'm Ryan, that's Joe. All right, get into it.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. This movie was great. I'd never seen it. I can't believe I hadn't seen it yet. It was amazing. No, we can't. We can't. All right, we got to slow this down. There's so much to talk about with this movie.
It's too late in the day. I don't have that energy.
I really, really enjoyed this movie. I hadn't seen it. I always wanted this from the moment I saw a first trailer about it. I wanted to see it. I watched one or two reviews on it way back when it had originally come out.
Mm-hmm.
But they do a good job of talking about it, but nothing that we're going to say here can really do it justice without watching it yourself.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I saw it in theaters when it first came out, and I enjoyed it just as much rewatching it to do this. I just got done watching it a couple minutes ago, and it was fantastic the whole way through.
Yeah, from the very get-go scene, it has Carroll Shelby driving in, he's one of the only Americans that ever won the Le Mans, I think. It has an S at the end of it, but I'm
depends on your accent, I think.
guess. Fairly certain it's pronounced Le Mans. And that's what it shows. And I don't know how much of this, what happened in this movie, is true to life.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, some of it is. I mean, obviously, the real Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles both played by, I apologize, I know this is a throwback for Team America, but one played by Matt Damon, the other played by Christian Bale. They crushed it.
They did.
They
totally
absolutely crushed it. Really, really good performance, especially Christian Bale. The Ken Miles his character, I loved him. I absolutely loved Ken Miles. I really hope that that's what Ken Miles was like in real life. And just from some of the pictures that I saw, he kind of looked like Christian Bale. He goes up and down weight a lot for different movies. He's really a tremendous actor. His versatility is crazy. And he almost looked like he did in The Mechanic. Not nearly that bad, but he was thin in this.
Yeah, he was real thin. You're right. That's a good comparison.
And when I saw the pictures of Ken Miles, he looked like that. He was a skinny dude. The portrayals in this movie were really, really well done. I liked so much of it. I don't even know. I'm going to have to struggle because I didn't write anything down in my notes, something I didn't like. Like, oh, I have to nitpick. Nothing. So I'm going to have to struggle to come up with something I didn't like about this movie.
The only thing that I know of right off the bat that I'm fairly certain was inaccurate, and again, this is based off what I've learned in the past, because this whole GT40 story has been around, obviously, for a long time now, and it's something I've heard a bunch of times from different sources and read about. I never heard that Enzo Ferrari flipped out on anybody. The story I always heard that was consistent was that in the contract was something about him losing control of his racing team. And he basically circled it and wrote something like unacceptable and just walked out. And they even made a point of saying like he always wrote with purple ink in his fountain pen. So it was like this purple, like the only note he made, he circled this one part and put like unacceptable and just walked out. He didn't do this whole, you're a hey fat boy with your ugly little cars and your ugly factory and stuff like that. I mean, the whole thing with Ford taking offense to it is real, but as far as I'm aware, that's the only. I mean, I'm positive there are other embellishments, and that might have happened and it was just left out of the versions that I read. But yeah, you're right, it's really hard to find anything to complain about with this movie. It's just, you wouldn't think it would be that good. Like a movie about these guys who drive cars around this track for 24 hours straight, and it's so good. And I mean, not even that much of the movie is actually racing. I mean, a lot is, but it's not like it's the whole thing. There's a lot of that's the politics, the interpersonal relationships, Ken's relationship with his family, with his wife and his son, his personal problems with anger and pride, and trying to be an adult, a functioning adult, and shoulder the responsibilities that he has, and Shelby having to step back from the thing that he wants to do. He says when he's giving that speech at the unveiling of the Mustang
Hmm.
that, you know, there are lucky people who find what they want to do and they never work a day in their lives. But he says there's another kind of person who finds something they have to do. And he's like, there are two of them here. He's like, I'm one. There's another man here. And he says he's talking about Henry Ford II, but, you know, it's really Ken Miles. He's looking
Absolutely.
right
He's
at
like
him. That's his
looking
pitch.
directly at him when he's
Yeah,
talking about that.
it's his pitch to him to be like, I know you have to do this just like me. So let's do it.
Yeah, there this I think my very favorite part about this movie is it doesn't have anything to do with the actors, the story, the directing. It's the fact that they don't make movies like this hardly at all anymore. Obviously, they do because they made this movie,
Yeah.
but it's so rare to have a movie like this. It's unapologetic. It is exactly it goes to be exactly what it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
It's not trying to throw in politics or representation, or it doesn't care about your feelings. It's just we're here to tell this story, and we're here to show these characters and make it entertaining. And it was everything I could have possibly wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no hipster type moments. Like, I feel like that was kind of what Nomadland was. It was kind of
Mm.
this, difficult story of people who either by choice or by necessity have to live a different kind of lifestyle. But there's so much of it that was clearly just like off the wall and out there. And I don't know. I don't know exactly what the point of it was, to catch you off guard or amuse you or just show you a different perspective. This was just, you're right, this was just telling a story. Here's this story, here's what happened, here's what the people were like. Doesn't matter if you liked everybody, doesn't matter if you liked anybody,
Mm-hmm.
except the little kid and the wife. It's hard not to like them.
Yeah, in one of the reviews that I remember listening to, one of the criticisms this particular reviewer had talked about the wife and getting upset with him for wanting to do this, even though when I went back, uh, right after it finished, and I went back to the scene where he has just won the first race that you see him race, and he has his son hop in the car, and it was just showing what level of talent you're dealing with this Ken Miles character. And it shows afterwards that his spoilers ahead for some of it. I don't want to try and spoil a ridiculous amount, but this is based on a true story, so it's history. It is what it is. He gets locked out of his shop by the IRS, and he doesn't have any money. And him and his wife are talking about it, and he says that I'm going to, get fat and old and eat pork pies. And so he's promising to her that he's going to give it up because he'd love to do it. And all she says to him, like, if you give this up, you're just going to be insufferable. Because she understands that that's what a partner does. That's somebody who understands that she understood the kind of person that she married. And like Shelby said in that speech he gives, sometimes there's a person who you have to do something. And Ken Miles was that guy. He had to drive these cars and help work on these cars and make them better and faster and all of it. It There's so much in it that's just fun to watch because of not only the story that's involved. And I'm not a big race. I don't watch NASCAR, Indy, any of that. Like I don't care at all, even a little bit. This movie just sucked me in from the very beginning of it. The introduction of both these characters. And Ken Miles, out of them, Ken Miles is easily my favorite of the two. His introduction as this mechanic talking to this guy who apparently owns some sort of sports car, and he's just like, "Well, you're not driving it like a sports car. That's basically what it's your fault. You're telling me I don't know how to drive my own car. Well, what I'm really saying is it's not actually your car. Your car is more like a Studebaker, or and he just starts naming the. It's not really. This isn't really the car for you. I just from the first introduction of his character, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like this guy, and he was great from every scene he was in. I loved it. The scene where him and Shelby are in the restaurant, and Shelby's pitching him the idea right after he's talked to Ford about this. Well, this is what I want to do. that was that was great. Just I don't know. There was so much of this movie that I didn't know what to expect. I assumed it would be something that I would enjoy just based on trailers, but this is the kind of movie that you do not see anymore, and for no other reason. That's that makes it a top tier movie to have on your list to watch. If you haven't seen it yet, you need to see it for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that we're in a time where a movie like this is the rarity. That now we have Batman movies and Superman movies and X-Men movies and Marvel movies and all this stuff all the time, and they kind of dominate the market. And a lot of stories like this you don't get anymore. Like I'm sure it's not really that way, but it seems like those are the ones that get the most play. You know, when you see a trailer or you see popular reviews coming up on YouTube or whatever else, it's for stuff like that. And I think it's probably because those movies bring in billions of dollars because everybody knows these characters. And I think they're important, you know. It's sort of a modern mythology and it gives you something to strive towards and hope for. But you need a place for real stories about real people and things that actually happened and just to kind of go through an experience like this.
Yeah, there were so many scenes in this that just felt real. Felt like something that could actually that this is the way that it actually happened back in real life when it happened. And there were other things that obviously embellished upon. So you have uh, Ford. It's Ford the second, and he has a the senior vice president of the company, whatever it is, Mr. Beebe,
Hmm.
played by Josh Lucas.
Yeah, the voice of the Home Depot commercials.
Oh, maybe is that the voice? Is that who does the voice for this?
Yeah, that's the dude.
Ah, I didn't know that. That
Where
okay? I
doers
get that
get it
now.
done or something like that, whatever
Yeah,
the line is. Yeah, that's all I could think of was like Home Depot guy's kind of a jerk. Like what happened?
that was there really was there senior VP like that? Was there and there probably wasn't, if we're honest. It probably didn't play out that way. They couldn't have Ferrari, just them be the antagonist of the movie. They're not really the antagonist of this movie. They're just the competition. And competition isn't necessarily the bad guy. It's just competition should be done in good faith, good fun. I want my best to beat your best, but I don't necessarily hate you. So I think he was part of the movie, that character, more of an embellishment, just to bring some sort of, you know, anxiety problems to what was going on. There had to be some sort of antagonist to make things like that happen. I really liked John Bernthal as Lee Iacocca. That was one of the only real names besides Ferrari and Ford and stuff that I recognized because I know he took over the Ford Motor Company years later. Like I know that name. He was a major, at least I believe that was the case with him, but he was a major businessman. I have heard of Lee Iacocca. That was not the first time I'd ever heard that name. And I always liked John Bernthal and pretty much anything he's done. He was easily the best Punisher that's ever been on film. Really sad that Netflix shut all those down, but you have a chance to watch. He is the best Punisher. He's great. Really, really
Mhm.
good.
I don't think that I could be wrong. I don't think that Iacocca was the CEO of Ford. He moved on to be the CEO of Chrysler for a while.
Hmm.
He was the one that like pulled Chrysler back from the edge.
Okay.
Just throwing that out there.
Fair enough. I knew that
He
name.
was
That I'd
super. Yeah, he
heard.
was super important in the auto industry, and he bounced between a couple companies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, having this BB character to bring a little tension in there, it was fine. It led for some, brought about some decent moments. I really enjoyed how they didn't want Miles racing for them
Hmm.
because publicly with, marketing publicity wise, they couldn't trust him.
Well, and it makes sense because as soon as he walks into the Mustang event,
Oh my gosh.
he's telling Leo, like, this is a crap car, and here's why. You know, it looks great, but here's all the things that are wrong with it, and I would never buy it. I'd buy a Chevy instead.
Yep.
I mean, the first thing he says to the guy is all the wrong things to say. If he would have just been like, it's kind of one of those things where in the movie, if that really is how it played out, if he would have just said, "Oh yeah, I understand you don't want fingerprints on the paint job," Peter, can you just not touch the car? Might have been a different story.
Might have been.
I would
But
actually be kind of interested to see if that guy was really like that in real life, because I bet you're right. It's probably not. It's probably one of those things where it's a company watching out for its image. I think a lot of companies do a lot of things that they probably shouldn't do. Like Coke got a lot of backlash a while ago for some of their training practices because they're trying to be, I don't know, progressive or sensitive or whatever it
I
is.
think the
But
word you're looking for is woke.
yeah, could be. But sometimes these companies, they just do stuff that they think will be the right thing to do because there are out of touch executives pushing it. I mean, even in one of my old jobs, I got balled out one time for I had it was a job where I was customer facing. That is to say, I worked for one company that assisted another company. So my client in this case called my boss to tell her what a great job I had done and how grateful they were for all the help I gave and, how I had gone above and beyond. They're like, "That's great." And then as soon as that call was over, it turned into, "Don't ever do that again. Like, here's all the reasons not to do that. This is not part of our job. We can't have them expecting this sort of thing. Like, you should never do that." I was like, "Oh, I can't work for you anymore." And that's when I really started trying to get out of that job.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of those things where companies sometimes seemingly act against their own best interest.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, it's showing Ford trying not to have the best driver drive for them.
Right.
Like they're doing their best to lose by having the wrong driver.
Yeah, and that's my point with that. The fact that they don't let him drive, and then they go to this race the first time they enter into the Le Mans, and they lose.
Mm-hmm.
And Ford was pissed, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
But this leads me into one of my biggest points about this whole movie: the scene where Shelby goes in, and Ford wants an explanation, and he just tells him, "Oh my God, where did I don't know if I necessarily wrote it down, but it was so great. He just talks about how no, we have him right where we want him, and he lists these reasons why, and he talks, and it's it shows. It's one of my favorite parts about this movie is that there's men in this movie being men. They're doing what men have done for all of human history. Great men, and there have been great women as well. Not saying like I know a bumper sticker I've seen that says uh be well behaved women rarely make history. That
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. It's the men in this movie, and they don't men are not portrayed like this in media anymore. It's
Yeah.
really rare. You have
If
the
they're being aggressive like this, they're goons or something
right,
like that. In this case,
they're
it's like,
bumbling idiots. The dads don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. They it's terrible, and I literally can't stand it. Considering I'm a dad and I handle my shit. Like I take care of the things I need to take care of. I'm not a complete moron. I'm not Homer Simpson. I have a little wit. You know, I can do some dumbass things. We can all do some dumbass things, but that's humans in general. But the men in this movie were unapologetically men. Like in the movie Super Troopers, one of the characters, "I am all that is man." Just that's what this was.
hmm.
And I loved it for that. That he goes into the office to talk to Ford, and I'm not going to snivel. I'm not going to grovel. I'm not going to apologize. I did exactly what I was supposed to do. Your guys screwed this up by not letting me do what I was supposed to do and have the person we were supposed to have do this. Now we're ready to do it for real.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like the Ford was like, "All right, Shelby, go to war." "Yes, sir." Turns
Yeah.
around and leaves.
And I like that he knows how to handle it. He's
Mm-hmm.
so smart. Like he knows how to handle all these different situations. I in the one scene, another thing that I was concerned about from I think it was in the trailers where the Deuce starts crying in the car. I think that was in the trailers. And I
Yeah.
remember being concerned about it. But when it happens, it makes a lot of sense. I like the reason it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because I am really interested in cars and the history of it. Henry Ford II's father, Edsel, died when he was like 43 or 45, something like that, of some kind of cancer. And
When Henry Ford II was 40 something, or
no,
original Ford.
no, Henry Ford had Edsel Ford. That was his son. Edsel is Henry Ford II's father.
Got it.
Edsel Ford died of, I think, stomach cancer at the age of, like I said, like 44, somewhere in there,
Okay.
early to mid 40s. And I like that I like that it wasn't just a goofy moment that, like, the out of touch CEO gets into the car and he can't handle it. I like that he's crying because he's like, oh my God, I wish my dad could see this.
Yes,
Like,
I
I
thought that
never
too.
understood this. This is so amazing. I wish my dad could have experienced this.
Yeah,
I really
that
liked it.
that surprised me as well because the trailers made it out to be one thing and it wasn't that. And I love that about it. Trailers so often give away way too much crap in your movies. They show all the best scenes. I don't have to go watch the movie now. I just saw all the best moments of it.
I feel exactly the same way. I like when they mislead you a little bit, but not to
Mhm.
the point of like confusion. Like where I went and saw Sweeney Todd not knowing that it was a musical because nothing indicated that it was a musical. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go see
Oh.
this new Johnny Depp movie because some of my friends want to go see it. We were all like, what? Did we go into the wrong theater?
uh yeah. No, that was I was surprised by that scene as well. And there were some risky things that Shelby did in this. That was a risky move. The bet that he makes and then doesn't tell Miles about the bet like, "Hey, you have to win this race if you want to be the driver." He doesn't say shit. He just does it. And then he writes on the little board, "All right, 7,000 RPM go." 7,000 RP 7,000? That's insane. Like noticed my truck this morning after watching that yesterday. My truck goes to 6. And that's maxing if my truck hits 6,000 RPM, my engine blows up. Like it's it's not going to handle that. Are you kidding me? Even brand new, I'd be surprised if it could handle that. Like that's insane. And these guys are doing between 7 and 9,000 RPM in these supercars. It's was absolutely crazy.
Yeah. I think they do a good job of pointing that out too. That it's these are engines designed for this, but
Mm-hmm.
you're still at the limits of what these can do mechanically. Like there's only so much you can do with a vehicle that light. If you make it heavier, it doesn't go as fast. If you
Mm-hmm.
make it out of sturdier material, it gets heavier. Like there are all these trade-offs. And Ken has this relationship almost with the machine where he can feel what it's doing and he knows what he can get out of it. And I don't think that's unique to him per se. I think that's a thing that comes up in a lot of movies and in a lot of situations. I even feel like Top Gun was kind of like
Yep,
that.
absolutely. I was just immediately thinking of that as well, like a fighter pilot
Yeah.
knowing his plane and what it can do, knowing the machine. No, whether it's a machine like a car, a plane, whether it's your firearm, your weapon, knowing what it is you're using, what it can handle, that makes a difference. And obviously, the one who can do that the best is the one who's been working on it and driving it the whole time.
Hmm.
The scene where he's testing it out, it's at nighttime and he's driving through all the barrels, and then all of a sudden something I'd never even heard of happens. He gets brake fade and his
Yep.
brakes just don't work. Oh well, your brakes are they're just done. I was what? It blows up. He gets out in the fireproof suit and the whole 9 yards, and I'm like, I didn't even know that that was a thing. Probably because I'm not big into racing, but that happened, and I was like, oh shit! It's just one more thing, kind of like this Le Mans race. It's an absolutely brutal thing to have to put yourself through. I didn't realize when they first talked about a 24-hour race, I just assumed it was one guy driving for 24 hours. No, it's not that because that's not safe. It would be
Yeah.
probably really, really bad. So there's teams. Each car has a team of drivers, and one pulls in, he gets out, the other driver gets in. But I mean, rain, shine, hot, cold, like it doesn't matter. Like you have to, it doesn't matter. You're just driving it. Just some things that it made me understand in this movie that I'd never really thought about. And being someone who's not into racing in any way, shape, or form, that was fun. It was fun to learn things I didn't know about. It's fun to watch guys who are not just Ken Miles. He's really good at driving. Like that's what he does, but he also knows really well the ins and outs of the car, how to build it, how to put it together and take it apart and how to make it faster, why isn't it going fast? What's wrong? All that. You're not just the driver, you're also like this mechanical engineer working on making the car a more high performance machine. Just watching all of that take place
Right.
is just amazing. It was really fun to sit and be transported into that world, and that's what it felt like. That I got transported into the world that they built up for me in this movie, and it was just great. Loved it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else to say. I
I
mean, there were a lot of good moments and there were a lot of great quotes, but the whole, I mean, as a whole, I just really enjoyed it. They I think everybody got a fair shake except Leo. He's the only one that was kind of unredeemed. Like he was kind of conniving the whole time. And I know
yeah,
that he was supposed to be that way just because we needed that. He probably represented all the corporate interests that would have made this thing difficult in the first place. But I mean, it's just really good. I don't
it
know what else
was.
there is to say
I
about it.
I really enjoyed the relationship Miles had with not only his son, which was great, but it wasn't. I'm going to beat you over the head with it.
Mm-hmm.
When he was the part you talked about where he's talking about knowing the machine and knowing how far you can push it, he's talking to his son about that
Yeah.
and trying to teach his son about the world and the world he lives in. This is what I do. This is how I do it. He and the relationship he had with his wife. Like as I said in the very beginning of this, one of the reviews I watched had a problem with her turning on him. But as I said, when I went back and watched it, yeah, he promised her that he was going to be done. And when Shelby shows up at his house after he's worked at whatever the I'm sure shitty job that he had to get was, instead of just
Mm-hmm.
running in, hey, I'm gonna go check out this thing with this guy real quick. I'll be right back. I mean, she saw that he left. She was onto it the whole time.
And
That
then
that was great because all right, I'll have you back in 30 minutes. And then he shows him this car, and then on next thing you know, he's driving it, and he's like, "Well, it's this. This is a problem, and that's a problem." And well, hold on a second. And he just takes off in the car again. Oh my god, it was so good.
yeah. And yeah, she gets over it. Another realistic moment, she gets over it when he says they're going to pay him $200 a day,
Plus
which I
expenses.
which I looked up. That would be about $1,600 a day now.
It's insane that
If you
amount of
take
money.
a normal work year, that would be 261 work days a year. That would be about $442,000 a year in today's money.
Yeah, it's like if you make $200 a day, that's about $1,000 a week. That's 52 grand a year. And you're not top 1% or anything, but 52 grand a year is certainly livable.
Well,
You
those
can
were
be just
19.
fine.
Yeah, I mean even today, is that
Yeah,
what you're
that's
getting
what I'm
at?
saying. Today, that's fine. You're okay with 52 grand a year. You
Yeah.
can easily make that, but
M's was $1964 or something like
right?
that.
She, I'm surprised she didn't say why didn't you lead with that? Like
Right?
start with that. Are you kidding me? Like if that's what you do when you're the partner, whether you're supporting her or she's supporting you, you support the other one in what they want to do. If it works out, awesome. If it doesn't, that's all right. You'll be there for them when it doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what you do. And I didn't feel the same about that relationship as the movie reviewer did. I thought it was fine. I had zero problems. I actually ended up liking her a lot. When she's driving that old Woody station wagon and she's pissed and she's starting to go really fast and zip around cars and stuff. That was great. When him and Shelby get into a fight in the front of right in front of their house and she
Yeah.
busts out a little chair, sits down with her paper. She's like watching them and they're laying on the ground. Can you give me a soda? Oh yeah, Shelby, you want one too? No, don't get him one. It's like, yeah, I'll take one. She brings out a couple of sodas. Just fantastic.
Yeah.
Just great.
So I really don't think there's that much more to talk about. But I really like the way their relationship was to the Ferrari team. I like that it keeps going back and forth between them. They're like glaring at each other. They're competing with each other. I like that Shelby keeps playing pranks. He like
Oh my
drops a
god.
nut and they
Yes.
find it. And they're like, "Oh my god, what is this?"
Right. See, okay, when he first did that, I thought that was going to be akin to cheating. Like he dropped that and they would call their racer into pit. Like, you need to pit right now so that we can figure out what's going on. But it wasn't that. He stole the stopwatches. He did that. They're just little small pranks. It was great. It shows this character who's very serious and he's the one in charge of all these different things. He has a sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's life. You got to have a sense of humor in life. And that was really good. I will say, one of my favorite parts, it was very small, but in this whole thing, after Shelby asks Miles, hey, they want you to slow down. They want me to what? They want you to slow down so all three Fords can cross the finish line at the same time. And he just says, you know what? This is your race. Do whatever you want to do. And during the race, when I like how it wasn't, because this is how that would really work. There wasn't Ford and Ferrari at the very end, at the finish line, and Ford barely edges out. That's how most movies would do it. But first of all, that's probably not how it happened in real life. Number one, because in a situation like this, a 24-hour race, well, Enzo just blew his engine. That was it. He blew his engine by trying to keep up and do what Miles was. He couldn't do it, and so he was out.
Mm-hmm.
And once he was out, the relief and Miles like, oh my god, we did it, but he still has to race. He still has to not crash and do his job. But after Shelby asks him to, this is what they're asking of us: be a team player. Hey man, I've done everything I can for you. I haven't asked anything of you. I know I'm asking you this. There's a moment with Christian Bale, and he is so good. He's driving, and he beat the lap record again. He just gets that lap record. He's on the straightaway, and he looks in his rearview mirror, and there's nobody there. And there's this look that comes over his face. And just that look on his face told me, the audience, everything I needed to know about what he was thinking. And he was thinking, Shelby has done so much to get me in this driver's seat. He told me he would get me here to drive this race, and he did it. He got me here. He doesn't know about the sacrifice. He doesn't know about the betting for his company. And hey, if he wins this Daytona, he gets to drive. He doesn't know about any of that. He doesn't know about the stuff Shelby had to do to get him here. But he understands this man who, and they don't talk about it. There's no hippy dippy, oh, I love you, man. Oh, you're my bro. There's none of that. And they are super close friends.
Yeah.
But there's none of that. They don't have to say it. That look on his face, there's no talking, there's no flashbacks to all the things that Shelby has done and like that you would need in some movies because the audience needs that to understand what's going on. That look on Christian Bale's face said everything that needed to be said about that. And it was, Shelby's done so much for me to just get me here. I didn't think I'd ever get to do something like this. Here I am in France racing this incredible race, and I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Because he put me in the position to do it. And so, yes, I'm going to slow down. We can do this 3-car thing. And yeah, he got screwed in the end because of that. But even afterwards, he pops out and Shelby's like, hey man, I shouldn't have asked you. I shouldn't have asked you to do that. He's like, you said I get to race the race. I got it. I got the race.
Yeah, and
Now
let's
it's
do it again. We'll do it
right.
again
Now it's
next year.
time to build upon and to keep going. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
That was so well done and so unlike what Hollywood normally does in movies nowadays.
And one of the things that I was going to mention is after he wins, well, after they finish, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
he looks up at Enzo Ferrari, and Ferrari tips his hat to him, and he nods back to him. And it's this little moment of respect. Like, Ford just wants to be there to see him lose. He doesn't care about him. He doesn't respect him. He doesn't feel any particular way. But it's clear that Miles has respect for him. And it's a good message.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to have a message, it's a good way to respect your opponent. They're not your
Yeah,
enemy. They're your opponent. They're your rival. They're not your enemy. They're
that's
not
right.
out to, even if they are kind of out to get you, even if you're pranking each other and stuff like that and you're aggressive, you can respect each other.
Mm-hmm. And that's how it should be. That breeds the healthiest competition.
Yeah.
That I want to be. It's like I want to beat you at your best. I don't want to, if two boxers are going to fight, I don't want to beat you because you got a bum elbow or a trick knee or I exploit some little thing. That I want my best to beat your best,
Right.
and that's the best competition right there.
Yep. Well, that's all I've got, man. How about you? This has flown by. We've been talking for a while.
I could literally go sit down and watch that movie again right now. Like it was just Halligan's. As you're listening to this just is one of those movies that this is not what Hollywood typically puts out. The acting and other movies do this. The directing's top notch. The cinematography, the story's really good. The everything is good, but the way this movie is done,
Mm-hmm.
how
And the
it's
way it
just,
all comes together.
mm-hmm, it's just they don't do it like this anymore. It's so rare. This was a breath of fresh air from movies that we've seen, and we've seen some good ones, some things that are fun and that we really liked. There's some crazy things but this is so unlike so much other stuff that's out there, and
Well,
it's insanely good.
and it's even fun too and funny in a lot of points. Like just Miles' mannerisms and the way he acts when his wife comes in and you see her for the first time and she's like talking about her car and what she
Mm-hmm.
likes about it, and she's like, oh, the smell of gas and whatever, and he's like, you some kind of deviant.
he Christian Bale just he's such a good actor.
He's really good.
And I absolutely loved this. This might be my favorite character I've ever seen him do. He was fun all around. Every different time he was on screen was so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
The car explodes as they're practicing, and 10 minutes later he's at the drawing board trying to draw up this new brake system that they can change this stuff out. They come up with a whole new way to do this. He's like, well, yeah, whatever. It's so great. One thing I do want to say about it. So, as I said, never a race guy. Don't care about that. My favorite car of all time is the Shelby 427 Cobra. And they talk about that at the very end of the movie. There's a couple in Shelby's place to buy those cars, his and her version of that car. And I'm like, yeah, I recognize those cars. I've loved them since I was a little kid. The first time I laid eyes on them in a magazine, I've seen them in. My dad was a big fan of cars, and my dad's not around anymore, and he and I were big. Watching movies with him was a big thing. And so there's been a lot of movies that have come out that, Dad, I wish you could have been here to see this. This one, it was almost hard for me to watch because of just how good it was and how much I know he would have loved it. I'm almost positive that you have already watched this with your dad because you watch movies with your dad. If you haven't watched this if you haven't made your dad watch this yet, you are a terrible son.
I'm trying to think if I have watched it. I don't think I have.
Oh my God! You're terrible. You fail. You're a failure. You need to go watch this with your dad. I don't know if he's a car guy or not a car guy. My dad was a car guy, and I was always surprised and I understand it now more than I'm older. I'm not a young man anymore because he'd just see cars. Oh, that's this, that's that, that's 56 Chevy, that's a 65, this and that. He just knew that stuff because he grew up doing it.
Yeah.
And I know that a little bit better now, but it was a little hard for me to watch this without him because of how much he would have enjoyed it. But it's just they don't do them like this anymore, guys.
Well, they don't do it
So
like this often anyway.
they really don't. So when something like this comes, you need to take the time and just sit down and absolutely enjoy. I enjoyed from the very beginning to the very end, which I didn't expect the end because I didn't know the history of anything.
Yeah,
I didn't
unfortunately,
know
yeah.
any of that stuff.
Yeah, it's one of these things where if you do know the history of it, you'll kind of know it's coming, but it was
Mm-hmm.
still enjoyable how they got everywhere, you know. I yeah, I didn't know absolutely everything, but I knew enough to know where it was going and it still was captivating the whole time. And that's kind of something that I was worried about after seeing the trailer. It's like, am I really going to enjoy this? I know this story. I've heard this story 1,000 times. How Ford almost bought Ferrari, and then this vendetta. I mean, Top Gear did a special about the. Well, I don't know if it's a special exactly, but they did a whole thing about the GT40 years ago, and told the story on their show too. But
Which I
it
always
was
really
still
like that
great.
car. Seeing the GT40 magazines, things like that. That's a really neat looking car.
Yeah, this is making me want to buy another car again. I have a problem,
You
and
have a problem.
I think a reproduction Cobra is probably the only car less practical than the one I currently have.
I mean, you're not wrong. They do sell those as kits.
They
I
do.
did find
I
they
know.
do. I did find that out. One other thing about this movie, there was one other name and this entire movie that I recognized, and that was McLaren, because McLaren makes sports cars. Well, I'm
Oh,
sorry, McLaren makes supercars,
mhm.
and they are my favorite supercar out of ones that I've seen. Just purely, just some of the very small amount of knowledge I have on any of that. The not Ferraris, not the way Lamborghini looks, not McLaren, the way it looks, that is my favorite supercar.
That's your
And so I
jam.
recognize that name.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say the actor, but yeah, yeah,
No, not at all the actor. I had no idea.
yeah, I don't know. This is just a side note. When I had this marketing class that we were talking about your evoked set, I think that's what they called it, which is to say, like, the average person only can hold like a certain number of brands in their mind. If I ask you for soap, you're going to name like 3 or 4 brands. And they did all this stuff, and they were asking some of us, they were quizzing us, and then they asked cars. I think I named 37 car brands. I was like, ooh, you picked the wrong guy for this. I know like every car brand's ever existed in the US. Because you're
I could
talking about
name.
your favorite car being a McLaren. My favorite car, like my top car ever, 1932 Duesenberg SJ. They are these are cars that were sold to royalty
Yeah,
almost
I know.
exclusively.
I know the Duesenberg. I know that name absolutely. Now, the McLaren is my top like supercar. As I said, the 427 Shelby Cobra is my top car of all time.
Mhm,
Has been since I've been a kid. Those Duesenbergs though, like they're unreal.
mhm.
How big they are, the way they look, all of it. It's an unreal machine. It's almost like the in Captain America, the first Avenger, the car that Red Skull has.
Yeah, I think it's
This
probably modeled after something like that.
Yeah,
Oh well,
this big
although
honking.
Mercedes did have like these giant 6-wheel things back then,
Hmm.
but still, yeah, I think there's probably some inspiration in that kind of design. I thought a similar thing for League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
I was getting ready to say that, you son
The
of a bitch.
the car that Nemo
Nemo.
has. Yeah.
Nemo's car. Yeah. That's the next thing I thought of. That movie right there, which didn't get as much credit as it should have. I really enjoyed that movie.
I think it came out at the wrong time against some stiff competition.
It did. That was, I mean, that was Sean Connery's last movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget he had an option to do something else that would have been a better movie for him, but he did what he wanted to do.
Right. And that was fun. He was a fun role for him. That was a fun movie. I like the characters who were in it. It was a good time.
Yeah. I liked it too. But That's all I've got to say. It's a good movie with a good message, good characters, good relationships, believable dialogue, believable situations. I like the political maneuvering and the subterfuge and and the pranking. I love the way, like you were saying, the way that Christian Bale plays his character, the way he takes on these mannerisms. I mean, if you saw, God, there was that boxing movie he was in. I can't think of the name of it, but he played a boxer in Boston, and
Yes, him and Mark Wahlberg.
yeah, and he
Yeah,
followed the guy he was supposed to be playing. He followed him around for like a while, and like learned to move like him and talk like him, and was hanging out with him and going to the same places and stuff. I mean, you're right. He's an incredible actor.
he really is. The amount of range that guy has is insane. There is a question I have for you though regarding how the race ended.
Hmm.
So he ended up doing the team player thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let all three cars finish at the same time. And now, first of all, I'm curious: is that true? Do we know if that actually happened? Like, is
Finishing
there a
at the same
picture?
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, that did
like
happen.
there's a historical picture of that happening. I assume that
Yep.
we know that did cool. So my question then becomes: like Miles already was like said he was 47 in this.
Yeah, he said he was like 45, and that was as things were starting. That would have been like 64 ish, and they
Yeah, it was
won in
64 if they
66.
were unveiling the Mustang. Sure.
Yeah,
But what happens if he doesn't do that and he just wins the race? Like,
he
do you
probably just wouldn't have been invited back.
I guess like he just gets fired. All right, Ford's like, see ya.
Yeah, and then anybody else would have picked him up. They'd have been like, "This guy's a monster."
Right?
Like anybody else would have picked him up.
Almost that was a question I had. Like, what happens to him? Like, you know what? Screw you guys. But I'd still, he's such a great actor. That look on his face conveyed everything, and it was amazing. And I mean, even Matt Damon, even he did a fantastic job in this movie. And I'm not even necessarily the biggest Matt Damon fan. He's done some things that I've really enjoyed, and he's had some clunkers, but almost who hasn't. They just really killed it in this movie. The acting, everything is top notch. I got that. That's it. Howligans. That's it. That's it.
That's
I
a
got nothing
watch.
else.
Totally a watch from both of us.
Oh no. I think I'm gonna go with not a watch on this one. I don't know if I don't even want anybody else. This is just for me.
The only
This is just
question,
mine. I don't want anybody else to watch this ever. It's just for me to watch from now on.
the only question is whether or not this is a watch or a, like you have to watch. Is this on the level of Good Morning Vietnam?
I don't think this is on the level of Good Morning Vietnam as far as top 100 movies that you need to have watched before you die. But I do believe, as far as cinema goes nowadays, it's a absolute must watch because it's so different than everything else that you get. It's it's such its own beast, and it portrays. I love how it portrays these men unapologetically doing what men do, and it's amazing. Oh, last thing before we go, even if it wasn't true, how Enzo reacted, and he like sits there and he goes off in Italian to Lee Iacocca while they're there. Even if that's not the way it happened, I loved it because I think second only to hearing that happen in Japanese, that's my favorite language to hear that happen in. Like, if you're going to go off on somebody, if you can't go off in that deep, guttural, throaty Japanese, Italian's got to be my second place.
Man, I guess I'm old fashioned. I like I Love Lucy, so I like hearing somebody go off in Spanish.
I get that.
Right?
Yep. I absolutely get it. I actually sent my girlfriend an I Love Lucy gif today.
Was it Ricky flipping out in Spanish? Well, if it was a
it was
GIF,
Ricky.
it wouldn't matter.
What? How
What?
dare you? It was Ricky because I just got home and I said, "Hi, honey, I'm home," and I sent a little "Honey, I'm home" gif of
Nice.
the I Love Lucy show. That's crazy. You
All
know, we
right.
keep saying we're done and we keep not being done. I think we're actually
Yeah, I
maybe
think we're actually done. So if you guys want to reach out, we're on Twitter at Movie Howl. We've got an email, moviehowl@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at ManPanda. We'd like to hear from you. We probably won't, but that's okay. We like doing this anyway. There are some of you listening, and hopefully some of you get to this point. I would just like to know if you get to the end. But, so maybe send me a quick DM or email or whatever. But yeah, that's all we got. Totally watch this. It's what is it on HBO right now?
HBO Max right now, yes, sir. It was great. Thank you so much for letting me watch it on yours. Folks, once again, I've been Joe.
I've been Ryan.
And we're out.